in the Galilee, and today's a nice day. It's going to be 86, not too hot. So it's the 22nd of June. It's Monday, and it's about 8:04 in the morning in the AM. Before I forget, I want to tell you that on the flight tracker around the Straits of Hormuz, they were seeing aircraft refueling tankers, which I'm assumptive were American, at about 11:30 at night in New York. So I think that was about 7:30 in the morning or 6:30 in the morning here in Israel. I don't know the time. Not very long ago. Um, Now Iran's on a different time zone, but that's not important. The fact that they were there. Now, refueling tankers in the air can be there for a few reasons. One, to scare Iran. Let's not kid ourselves, right? Trump flies the refueling tankers. Iran thinks, oh no, the jets will be coming any minute. Let's call Trump up and see if we can make a deal. Well, that ain't going to work. Yeah, that ain't never going to work. Or Trump really is going to bomb them like he was threatening to do. So I want to throw that out. And there's people that have the screenshots of the flight tracking radar. So, this is not somebody just, oh, there's a nuclear war starting today at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's not that. It's something really went on here. Now, the way Trump is, he could have put the refueling tankers up and then called the jets back. You don't know with him. But we're going to get into all the details on this. So, Trump threatened Iran and publicly not only threatened Iran, but threatened the negotiators, told them they wouldn't leave Switzerland, as in, you know? So they walked out. I'm going to get into all the details with you about what happened. There's a lot of mainstream media that are saying things that are on the surface true, but they're giving it a twist that is taking you away from what really went on. And I'll cover that with you. All right. So as it stands now, I don't think there's any negotiations. Okay. And I'll go wait till I tell you the preconditions they're putting. Oh, it's a real mess. You know, it's just a big mess. That's really all that Trump's dealing with a massive mess. And that's the reality of the situation. He's got a mess on his hands. How he's going to get out of this mess is uh how I'm going to get out of this particular page in YouTube is another good question. Hold on. Let me see if I can get anywhere with this. No. So how do I let me try this. And that's not working. Like that. Okay, let me get back into this and see what the heck is going on. I think I'm out. I'm not. Every time YouTube tries to make something better, I'm not kidding you, they make it worse. Google too. I just wonder why they do that. Things just get worse. I updated the iPad and now it's giving me all these dual screens, vertical things now that I never used to get, and it's driving me nuts with that. It's just silly. I mean, they don't understand anything anymore, or they're actually trying to make things worse, uh, from the unclean spirits to they're telling them to make life more stressful for people. I'll be glad when we get out of this age and we don't have the internet anymore. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to miss it. I'll remember it, but I'm not going to miss it. No idea what this is about. Okay, it looks like we've got ourselves a good live stream. Let me check the sound and everything. Okay, it looks like we've got ourselves a good live stream. Let me check the sound. Yeah, we're good. Okay, thank you, moderator. And let me put a post up in here very quickly, which is probably going to be seconds. Let go. Okay, that looks like it worked. And let me get it pinned up there. And I think we got it. Yeah, we're good. All right. Let me close this. Being a Bible believing site, I'm gonna do some praise, okay? Which is rarely done. It should be done more, but figure out why they don't. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so what happened yesterday? Well, J.D. Vance and Kushner and I'm guessing Witkoff. I don't know. I think I saw his name. I saw Kushner and J.D. Vance. They went to Switzerland. Uh, there's a hotel owned by Qatar that's being used for this negotiation. J.D. Vance tried to shake the hands of one of the Iranian delegates, and he shunned it. He wouldn't do it. They came out with a comment that said, "We're never going to be friends with America, and we're never going to stop trying to kill the Zion words to that effect, the Zionists, Israel." Okay, so you know, nice, right? So Trump took it upon himself to publicly threaten Iran. He didn't go to Switzerland and sit there with him and say, "Hey, you, come here, punk," this is what I'm going to do to you, blah, blah, blah. Okay. He didn't do that. He publicly said it, which is extremely insulting. He said that he was basically going to bomb them like he did in the past if they didn't make a deal. Okay. Now, he's already given the store away. I don't understand what he wants to do, give more away. He learned his lesson. We would hope they signed a deal with him Sunday, the 14th of June, and then they digitally, but what's the difference? And then they came back to him and they said, no, it was just on paper. We're not abiding by it. Okay. And they said that they will not continue the negotiations unless Trump retracts and apologizes for his comments, which I cannot give you 100% guarantee, but I would give you a very strong opinion that Trump is never going to publicly apologize to Iran. I don't see it. I think he'd go to war before he apologizes to them. Okay. If he lost his temper, let's say with J.D. Vance or the Speaker of the House or, the chairman of General Motors or something like that, he might, you know, show. I don't think he would go and do a public apology, but he might have the guy come to the office and, shake his hand and, act like they're best friends, which would be a way of saying he didn't mean what he said, but that's not an apology either. So if Iran says they want an apology, they're not going to take a non-apology. I don't think so. They're here to humiliate the United States, and they're there to drive a wedge between the United States and Israel. Okay? Remember that America did about 60% of the work on bombing Iran the last go round, and Israel did about 40%. It could have been 45. I believe America did more than half, but not by a lot. Okay? So they don't want Israel there anymore. Okay? So they didn't just make a statement that Trump has to apologize and retract his threats. They also said for the negotiations to continue that Israel has to withdraw from South Lebanon. In the meantime, Israel is all day long and all night long, every day, to some varying extents, attacking Hezbollah. Trump said the reason there's trouble in Hezbollah is you told Hezbollah to light it up. He told that to the Iranians, not in those exact words, of course. And he's blaming them for Hezbollah rising up, not Israel. The Israeli government is telling us that Trump realizes that Israel needs to disable Hezbollah ability to wage war. Until then, we have to continue doing what we're doing, which is stay in South Lebanon. So Trump is not sitting there and telling Israel to leave. Now, some of you will say that, oh, he doesn't give a hoot about Israel. He tell him to get out. But, you're right. He doesn't give a hoot about Israel. I mean, Vance came out and said that, at the end of the day, we do what's best for America, nobody else, right? Well, so does Israel to a point. Remember, Netanyahu's like a curse on Israel, and he hates Iran because they've been supporting the Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. They supported Syria in the past. They supported Iraq in the past. He doesn't like them, so he wants to get rid of them. Okay, and so if America's going to attack Israel, you'd have to beat Netanyahu back with a stick to stop him from attacking Iran with America. He loves doing that. And that's what happened. So 98% of Israel in a poll are against what they're saying is that uh, Trump surrendered. 98% of Israelis in a poll. See, we understand the Middle East and we understand wars with them. Okay. And we understand that they use human shields, children, women, everything, old people, young people. And we understand that they attack civilian structures with regularity intentionally and hit civilian areas intentionally. We understand. We understand that they do that, and those are war crimes, and we understand they commit war crimes. And we understand that the nations don't do anything about the war crimes the Muslims do because they want to get rid of Israel. They don't want Israel to be the head of the nation serving Jehovah and having a righteous earth. They can't live in such a place. So they're not going to be living in such a place. This is what the reality is. So Trump, he threatened the negotiators when they were there. Let me tell you a story about World War II in Japan. Japan had negotiators, which had diplomatic immunity, inside the United States of America, negotiating with America under false pretenses, right up to and including the time that Pearl Harbor was attacked. So they were playing it straight right through the attack. And did America assassinate them or put them in jail? No. America respected the diplomatic immunity and threw them out of the country, which you could do with diplomats. And they probably hastened it. They might have had the FBI or military intelligence or something. Well, there was counterintelligence corps, I think, back then. Could have gone and escorted them to the airport and stayed with them and then put them on a plane. I don't know what happened. They might have given them 24 hours, which is likely. But they would have been in a hurry to get out of there. So that's what happened. There was a lot of Japanese people living in Hawaii back then. And I imagine that they were getting help from these people the Japanese were getting help. And they attacked on a Sunday when the soldiers were, laid back. Some were in services, some were, off the boats doing whatever they were doing on shore and sleeping and taking it easy when they hit. It was a real catastrophe. And they let the Japanese negotiators leave without even threatening to put them in jail or kill them. And the admiral that was in charge of the attack was, rather successful in doing it. And when it was over, he was saying that, we just opened up, we woke up a sleeping tiger or a lion or something, that words to that effect. And he knew that, they had a quick victory, but it was going to be a nightmare down the road. And the Japanese had tremendous naval superiority over America that they had built up. Sounds like somebody building up missiles, huh? And it took America 18 to 24 months to get a handle on them with the Navy. And America was doing stuff that the sailors didn't like. They were slapping together these destroyers that were built with 1/4 inch steel. And they loaded them up. They had all kinds of guns. They had, I guess, 5-inch guns, 8-inch guns. Yeah, the battleships had 16-inch guns only. They might have had a 10-inch or something like that, but I think they mostly had 8-inch guns. The difference is the 8-inch guns didn't have the range of the big guns, the 16-inch, which were able to go out to 25 miles. But the 8 inches were probably, 15 miles or something like that. But that's still, you're talking about a shell about like this. That's a powerful shell. If you hit a boat, it's going to cause a lot of damage. The reason America was suffering then is the enemy had ships. I think that Japan had 19 and 20-inch guns, even. They had big, big, guns like this, They had more range, so they could shoot the American ships, and the American ships couldn't hit them back. Okay. So America was not doing good in the early days of the war with the Navy in Japan and in the Atlantic region against, the Axis powers, Hitler and so forth. They had these U-boats, which were cheap submarines. Now, they weren't mini submarine drug dealer submarines. They were, they had, I guess, about 40 people on them, 30, 40 people. Um, they were smaller than the other submarines, but they were still good size. They carried a pretty good arsenal of torpedoes, and they had 1 or 2 guns on the deck. So if they saw, a lot of times they saw merchant marine vessels, and they would, that's what they were doing, and they would tell the people on the ship to abandon ship. They have a few minutes and then we're going to sink the ship. And then they didn't waste torpedoes. They just shot it with the deck gun until it would sink or be all burning and stuff like that. And they normally would just leave the guys there in their lifeboat. Sometimes these merchant marine vessels, they started putting a gun on them and they trained the gun crew. But it was not a really, they weren't like sailors, and they tried to hit the submarine if it surfaced, but the submarine was generally not very worried about them and took the ships. So anyway, back to uh, the Iranians. So they stayed in the hotel. They didn't go back to Iran. And what you're hearing is this: Qatar and Pakistan negotiators are continuing to talk to them, and it looks like progress is being made. If you're going to believe that, okay, you better start believing American Airlines has a flight to the moon next week. You know, um, I mean, I believe the Qatar and the Pakistan negotiators are trying to talk to Iran, but there's no negotiations. Their conversation would probably be along the lines of getting Iran to return to negotiations. So they're flavoring it in the news to make Trump happy, I believe. That's not the case, okay? That's not what happened. And before this occurred, Vance was saying we're turning over a new leaf with Iran. What leaf would that be, Vance? I'm real curious. No. There's no turning over a new leaf. Trump's even talking about taking the country now. So they did talk for, I was told, 80 minutes before they heard about Trump's threats. So in that 80 minutes, what my understanding was talked about was Lebanon. That was it. The Iranians are publicly reiterating they have a right to uh, nuclear energy and, enhancing uranium, enriching it, and all of that. So there is no uh, there is no progress with the nuclear stuff. There's no progress with Lebanon, and I don't know what, like I told you, the only reason the Iranians went there was to enhance the deal with America. In other words, get more out of America because they saw weakness. Okay. And they started right off, Trump threatening them. They're sitting there thinking, wait a minute. If Trump is threatening to blow us up and kill the negotiators, we can't be in those negotiations because he's got the upper hand. He took the upper hand. We can't have that. So they walked out. They're not going to let Trump have the upper hand. Now, they also said that if Israel doesn't leave Lebanon, pull out, this whole situation is going to transition into a more violent phase. That's what using words to that effect, that they're going to violence if Israel doesn't walk away from Lebanon and pull out. Well, that's not going to happen. Hezbollah keeps attacking Israel, and what the heck is Israel supposed to do? Just sit there and say, well, we get attacked. What the heck? We're a bunch of lousy, stinking Jews. We deserve it. But we don't think that way. Iran does. To some extent, a lot of other countries do also, most of them. So this is basically where we're at now with the negotiations. So if Trump does apologize, that gives him 50% end of the problem of no negotiations. What he has to do next is get Israel to go out of Lebanon, which he realizes is stupid. So, what Trump did wrong right away, I'm telling you, this was his mistake. The Iranian negotiators walked out. the correct response would be for Trump to call Vance up and say, leave. And they walk out and they leave a message that if you want to resume the negotiations, you call us. But right now, there's no ceasefire. That's what they should do, which is basically what Iran did. And they didn't do that. So what the Iranians believe is Trump's going to go bomb some lesser important sites and then turn around and go to Iran and say, oh, do you want to go negotiate now? But what Trump doesn't want and what he's not going to like is while this is going on, Iran's going to launch drones at Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and maybe not Oman, but also Saudi Arabia and maybe Iraq and who knows what. Okay. Will they attack Israel? Maybe. I don't know. I don't really know. Netanyahu will go back and hit them hard. I mean, I would say at least if they did a missile flurry at us, 5 or 6, 7 missiles, at least 100 bombs on Iran from America. At least, maybe 200. What's Trump's best move now? War. War. Congress isn't happy with this, ridiculing America. They don't like that. When it's just ridiculing, they'll put up with it. Okay, if Iran's just sitting there minding their own business and they ridicule America, let them. Okay, but they closed the Persian Gulf, and they want to cause economic chaos in the world, and they want to cause oil prices to go up to crazy levels, $200-300 a barrel or more. That's what they want. And believe me, if they shut the Straits of Hormuz successfully, which I think they can, and they get their buddies, the Houthis, their proxy, to shut the Red Sea area, well, you got about a third of the oil in the world not moving. And a third of the oil not moving in the world is going to drive prices up not by a third because there's a fear factor. And the fear and the paranoia of where this is going will get the oil to probably go up 2, 3, 400%. Not going to be another $20, $30. It might be. I mean, that's what happened the last go round. So it might go to 110, 115 and end at that level, but I think not. So the situation is pretty darn dismal, and it's looking really, really bad for Trump. Congress is going to say, why did this moron threaten them at the beginning of the negotiations? He finally gets them to negotiations, and then he opens up. Not, I mean, it would have been one thing if he placed a phone call to them somehow and told them they better make a deal or he's going to bomb them quietly, that would have been bad enough. But he does it publicly, and then he's using foul language. Okay, by the way, F word, S word. And then he tells I think F word, and he used foul language. I know that. Then he says that the negotiators aren't going to leave, meaning he's going to kill them. So, Congress has got to scratch their head and say, is this guy not insane? He worked so hard to get them into negotiations, and this is what he does? It's getting easier and easier for them to convince people that Trump lost his marbles and do an Article 25. Look at this. Who sets up a negotiation and threatens to kill the negotiators, as well as bomb the other side you're negotiating with? This is, he's so bad. He basically did an unconditional surrender, but he did have conditions. So what Trump did with them, with that deal that they digitally signed on the 14th of June, was Trump. He's just nuts. I mean, you got to accept that he's just nuts. I mean, we can't find any good answers now. If Trump decides to attack them and take the country back, then Congress may look the other way. Congress knows there's a problem. Closing the Straits of Hormuz is the real problem. Congress in America is not in favor of that. They know closing the Straits of Hormuz is going to lead to economic chaos. No doubt about it. All right. Let me go through this and see what I wrote down in my notes that I forgot to tell you. Um, Probably a few things, not critical though. Uh, okay. Boy, it's getting warm fast here. It's getting hot in here. He said publicly, Trump was saying he may take over the Straits of Hormuz if we have to. I'll blow the S word out of them. And that came from Fox News. So we try to analyze what's going on with Trump. What we see is a guy that's run by fear and greed. And those are the two factors. Now he's talking with greed and no fear, but he still has fear. Trump went on to say that Iran must immediately stop their highly paid proxies in Lebanon from causing trouble. If they don't, will hit Iran very hard again, just like we did last week, only harder. So that's bad English. Just like we'll hit them like we did last week, just like we did last week, only harder. Well, okay. We'll cut them some slack and let that go. Oh, Beulah's mad. Okay. And then Trump was reported to have threatened the negotiation delegation from Iran itself, saying the Iranian officials in Switzerland that they won't make it back to Iran if they close the Straits of Hormuz while Netanyahu bombs Lebanon. So he's now saying that he's going to take his pit bull, Israel, and turn it loose on Lebanon. Uh, you close the Straits of Hormuz and you won't have a country. You won't even make it back to your F word country. Well, you see, somebody's pushing another fear button on Trump here, okay, that he's responding to. It could be friends of his in Congress that are going and telling him they're getting ready for an Article 25. I don't know. I think they probably are. Uh, so then they left the negotiations and they returned to their residence, which is they have a bunch of hotel rooms, probably suites in the hotel that's owned by Qatar or a Qatar company in Switzerland. And they said uh, they will not return to the negotiations unless Trump apologizes and retracts his threats. And in addition, this is what they're not telling you, but it went down coming from Arab media and stuff. This was said. And in addition, as a condition to resume negotiations, they want Israel to withdraw from South Lebanon. That's what they really said. You're not hearing it all. Or unless you're following my Telegram where you're following the news in the Middle East from Middle East sources. That's what really went on. And that's what they were talking about for the 80 minutes they did have discussions. If Israel does not, listen to the rest of it now. If Israel does not withdraw its forces from Lebanon, all negotiations will stop. Iran will enter a phase of violent response with the continuation of the Israeli occupation and its crimes. See, they're following an Islamic prophetic agenda that I've discussed with you several times. It basically is not in their Quran, it's in their other book, that Hagit or something like that, that interprets the Quran. So it's like a commentary, right? But it's written by some sages that the Muslims have that they consider important. And the basis is they're saying that the ultra Orthodox going to rise up with the red heifer. They're going to say they're very holy now. And because the red heifer, they have this holiness and they're going to go get sprinkled with the red heifer. ashes in the water, and they're going to go to the Temple Mount to pray. And because now they're holy enough to go up there. It's Fort Antonius, the Roman fort. But anyway, they're going to go up there and they're going to pray. And they're going to look at the Dome of the Rock, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and all that stuff. And they say, no, no, no. And they're going to knock it down. Okay. And then they're going to have a false Messiah show up. And I guess in reality, we would refer to the false Messiah as Elijah, you know, uh, and the other one will be Enoch. And then there's Apostle John in the mix. And then let's not forget the anointed prince from the line of David. They're all going to be anointed prince, anointed Mashiach, Nagid, anointed prince. Apostle John has an apostle's anointing, and obviously Elijah and Enoch have an anointing. So I don't know what false messiah they're talking about. Okay, there ain't one on the books for this, you know. And this false messiah is going to tell the Jews that they have to kill all the Muslims. That's the party line that the Shiites follow, that the Sunnis don't buy into very much. Some do, I believe, but not all of them. So that's why it's important to kill Israel. Now, when they see Israel occupying South Lebanon, they say, oh, Israel's claiming their land back. They know it's Israel's land. You know, they're claiming their land back. Now that's a problem because they might start taking Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and they'll have the oil. Huh? How are we going to deal with the Jews if they have the oil? You know. So they're trying to do a service to the Muslims. Now, the leaders of this Iranian government are straight up Satan bots. They're not Muslims. You know, they'll say they are, but they not really are. Okay. And they're just doing this to make the people happy and wipe out Israel and say, we should be the head of the caliphate. We should Khomeini should be the caliph. Look what he did. He ended the Zionist threat that was going to kill all the Muslims. And without Israel, then they would put pressure on the other Muslim states to merge into a caliphate, which is like states in America. You know, you'd have the state of Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, you know, merge them together into a caliphate with a caliph, and the caliph would be, they wouldn't have a Congress, okay? The caliph would be a double leader. He would be 50% religious and 50% political, okay? He's the law, okay? So they would turn this whole Middle East region into a one country, and they would probably try to raise an army of 4 or 5 million, or at least 2.5 or something like that, you know. And then once they got that and they got enough tanks and planes and boats and missiles, they would start conquering. They could easily go to Africa first and get the minerals and natural resources, and then they could expand up, knock off Turkey, and then go into Europe. I mean, this is not going to happen, but this is what they like to think about. Okay. What if Congress tells Trump he has to apologize? I think Trump will tell them to mind their own business. um, so far, I have not heard of Trump doing a rescission or an apology of what he said. And I have not heard about anything of him telling Israel to, leave South Lebanon. I haven't heard anything like that. I don't think he's going to do that. Is it possible that Trump's come out of anesthesia and he realizes what he's dealing with Iran? It is possible. Netanyahu may have gotten him to wake up. Originally, Netanyahu told Trump it's a waste of time to negotiate with Iran. And Netanyahu's right. Now, I don't have any further information on the refueling tankers, but we will check in a moment Israel's social media sites that will report. Um, Israeli government ministers reporting that they expressed confidence that Trump understands the problem with Israel with South Lebanon and is not going to cause us to pull out. And the guy that runs Syria, the Al Qaeda ISIS guy with a new paint job, that character's saying that people don't understand what Trump was talking about, and he's awaiting a sit down with Hezbollah. So what Trump is trying to do, let me explain this and why it's not going to work. What Trump is trying to do is not send Israel into Lebanon to get rid of Hezbollah. The Netanyahu is completely committed to Israel should not expand their territory. He's not pro Jehovah, Look at his actions. Look at those parades he runs through Tel Aviv and Jerusalem all the time. That should be your answer right there. Remember their words, listen to their words, but don't believe them. Their actions talk much louder. So the Trump's idea, let's switch. We'll get Netanyahu to not attack Hezbollah. We'll send Syria in to attack them. Okay? And what the people in Israel are saying, if you arm the Syrian army, this is what's going to happen. You can't really send them in with just rifles, although Trump may try that. You have to send them in with more. Okay, what is more? Well, you need Humvees that are armored with machine guns on top, some tanks, armored personnel carriers, and stuff like that. All right? You send them in, and they go and they kill Hezbollah, but Hezbollah tries to kill them. Okay? Now, there's likely Hezbollah in Iraq, that may start going into Syria to kill Syria and the people in Syria. And Iran may likely hit the roof when that happens and start missile attacking Syria until Syria stops, which probably wouldn't take more than 30 or 50 missiles. And then Syria would realize nobody's protecting them and they'd stop. And that would be the end of that. And then Israel pulled out of Lebanon to let Syria go in. And it's very easy to stop Israel from ever going back into Lebanon. And we've lost our position and all the gains in the war, and we're up the creek again. So that's what would likely happen. In addition, the Syrian army would likely kill inside Lebanon other enemies they perceive, which would be Druze, maybe other kinds of Muslims they don't like Alawites, for instance, and they may go after Christians, although I don't think they'd go that far in Lebanon. Uh, I just think that Iran would missile attack Syria because they're not worried about what Syria can do. So they would missile attack Syria in population centers anywhere they could hit them. They don't care. And that might affect the Israeli soldiers that are in Syria near our border. That could affect them there. Although then Israel would retaliate against Iran, and they know that. So I'm not sure. I don't think that this is ever going to come to pass. And if it did, Iran would just blow the negotiations and say, America has a new pit bull called Syria. Same thing. We're not going for it. So the Iranians are trying to dictate. Not only are they trying to dictate, they're trying to drive a wedge between Israel and America. Badly, they're trying to do that. They're afraid of Israel because Israel attacks for real. Okay? We know what they are. We know how they are, and we hit them for real. And they don't like that. Now we got another nice development that's very interesting, and I'll explain it to you. Israel is exploring the possibility of establishing a naval presence in the port of Berbera in Somaliland. Now, Somaliland and Israel recently became very good buddies, and Israel recognized them as a country. We're the only, maybe there's another country to recognize them. Maybe there's two or three or something, but we might be the only one or almost the only one. New relations could allow the Israeli Navy to use this location to deploy its Dolphin class submarines, according to the Defense Network. The port of Berbera is located across from Yemen. This geographic position provides Israel with a strategic vantage point for monitoring the activities of the Yemeni Houthis and Iran in the Gulf of Aden and the southern Red Sea. So the submarine, you see, the submarines can be deployed. I don't know what we would put, two there, maybe. I think we got six, maybe seven. We don't have a lot. We put probably two there, and they could stealthily run around there under the water. The Houthis have no ability to detect them, neither do the Iranians. And if we pick up on our surveillance drones or over flyovers that the Houthis are going to attack a merchant marine vessel for violating their control of the Red Sea, the Israeli submarine could get over there and sink the boats that the Houthis are using. But the boats are going to be small boats with a big Evinrude motor or something. I don't know if they would torpedo that. If the boat wants to use other weapons, it would have to surface and then hit them with machine guns and artillery pieces, like a 5-inch gun, which would be more appropriate. But when we surface, the submarine would be vulnerable to them shooting anti-tank or anti-ship missiles shoulder fired at us, at the submarine. So we would never take the chance. So we would probably launch ship-to-ship missiles at the boat that wants to do the hijacking from under the water. We might have to come up to about 40-foot depth, but that's still safe because they're not going to be able to deploy weapons against us like that. So Israel could be saving the day there. So Vance is running around saying America wants to turn over a new leaf with Iran. Progress was already made today. You see, they're playing the same lies again, And um, what new leaf did Trump turn over? He threatened to kill the negotiators. Okay, maybe he turned over a new leaf. He's becoming more aggressive with Iran. I'll grant that one. Um, Now, this is what happened before the blow up. 12 oil tankers are on their way to China. Two more are this is yesterday, in the process of what? Two more are in the process of negotiation. Team, what? No, they've got 12 ships out to China and they're getting another two out. And these could be super tankers with up to 3 million barrels in each. Um, there's no truth to any talks about the renewal of the signing agreement between Iran and America. Yeah, no, the situation is pretty cold. Do I think Iran is going to start getting violent very soon? Yes. They're going to, they might, if they're stupid, give Israel a deadline to leave Lebanon, or else they're going to start attacking, which is going to get them a preemptive attack unless Trump stops it. Iran is showing America they're ready and willing to go to war if they don't get what they want. And Trump may give them everything they want. Um, the Iranians say, I quote, "We will not give up the right to enrich uranium," which means to the eyes of the world, oh, they're going to make themselves a nuclear bomb. I don't believe that, but the world does. We, They talk about Trump dealing with Iran responsibly. See, the Iranians never got too impressed with Trump's attacks on them. They still kept pushing for what they want. And they basically got a lot, even just to sit down and negotiate. And, you know, they see Trump as a sucker and they're going to milk him for all it's worth. I would like to see Trump fulfill his threats to Iran, but it's pretty vain to sit there and think Trump is ever going to fulfill things he says. That if you think every time Trump says something he means it, you don't you really don't understand anything about Trump. He says things and never goes through with it most of the time. So he's out in left field. Let's take a quick look at social media before I talk about the rabbi and the redemption in Israel, what's going on there. Let's take a look and see if we have any updates that show us that there was an attack on Iran or something like that. Um, I'm going through my social media. I'm just going to hit 3 or 4 places. They'll pick it up if it happened. Um, not seeing not seeing anything there. Let me check again. Um, Wait, something popped up. Hold on. Let me read this. No, somebody gave me a news story and I went to check it and it's not checking. Okay, let me verify this for a minute. Oh, iPad nightmare. Okay, Trump did say that the world is running out of oil if the Straits of Hormuz does not get open. Oil reserves could run out within a few weeks, he's saying, if the shipping doesn't open up in the Straits of Hormuz. Now, if the shipping doesn't open up in the Straits of Hormuz and the Houthis close the Red Sea also, which is another 7% of the world's oil, that few weeks figure probably drops by, 15-20%. I'm going to put my air conditioning on. Hold on a minute. I'll be right back. Be back in a moment. Oh, it feels much better in here. It's getting hot. Ah, okay. I'm going back to see if we had a breakout of fighting in the Middle East yet. And so far, nothing. If it did happen, and those refueling tankers were refueling jets that were attacking, by now I would have gotten it. And no, there's people here that speak Arabic in Israel, and they're reading the Arabic social media all the time and stuff. And, let me check the live stream real quick. No, I don't see anybody um, asking questions or doing anything like prayer requests. Okay, so that's what is going on. So Trump could have been bluffing, but people did see the refueling tankers over the Straits of Hormuz on the flight track radar. So it really happened when it was maybe a pre-scheduled exercise, which I highly doubt. It was probably a threat against Iran, or Trump was going to do an attack and then he um, backed off. You know how it's funny how they were always bothering people with anti-terrorists or anti-narcotics, restrictions on your money and your banking, and the terrorists run wild, and it's all joke. Doesn't do any good. They're just trying to control the people. I mean, you know, it's, Iran's the biggest of them all, and they just relieved the sanctions on Iran, but they put these restrictions on you. But Iran could go do what they want. Isn't it a farce? That's what happens when Satan's people run all the countries in the world. It's a joke. The world's a joke. It's a comedy of errors. All right. Uh, so what happened? There's this guy, a rabbi in Israel. He's called a Zionist rabbi. Um, okay, so he was saying things like the wars, how the public opinion is changing against Israel. how things are going crazy in the world and stuff like that. And he's saying that redemption is close. He says these are the steps coming to redemption. Let me explain to you. They don't read Matthew to Revelation, okay? But they read Genesis to Malachi, all right? They read the whole Old Testament. They also have their own book that they wrote, the previous guys to them, the Talmud. But with the Talmud doesn't, I don't believe, have prophecies. I'm not thinking they do. They interpret the prophecies in the Old Testament, and they don't interpret them very clearly because they have different sages that, Rambam says this, and Ishkabibble says this, and this one says that. So they have all these different conflicts. Not unlike pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, amillennial, right? Okay. So they're well aware of redemption, and they understand chaya olam, everlasting life. Okay, they got that much. Okay, they're told by the rabbis that they don't know how to interpret prophecy because you need to have a special gift or whatever they, like the rabbis do, the special rabbis. So you shouldn't try to interpret prophecy. Yeah, well, we don't believe that, of course. So anyway, um, they're saying that all these things are going to redemption, and he's telling them that redemption's coming real quick. And I've heard this from other Orthodox Jews, not ultra Orthodox Orthodox. I've heard it from other Orthodox Jews. The ultra Orthodox are messed up. They believe that this Israel isn't Israel. Well, it's not. It should be called Judah and Jerusalem, but that's what God calls it because it's not yet Israel. But they say things like, if they could go get passports from another country, like if Jordan took over the West Bank, they would go to Jordan, move into the West Bank, and become Jordan citizens. Things like this, um, because they don't want to be Israeli citizens. A lot of them come here from other countries, Europe, America, places, and they don't get citizenships in Israel. They stay here on tourist visas. With the yeshivas can student visas, not tourist student visas. The yeshivas can issue student visas to them. So every year and a lot of these guys are 75 years old. They've been getting these visas for 40, 50 years, the school gets it for them. They call them in and say, here, sign here. And then somebody goes with them and they go down to the immigration office and they hand it in. But they probably have a special immigration office in Jerusalem that's all full of them, and they hand it in over there, and they get just rubber stamp. Yeah, boom, boom, boom. Okay, give me your passport. Boom, you're good for another year to buy. That kind of thing. Um, there's a lot of them that'll do that. They don't want to be a citizen here. They don't think it's right to be called an Israeli. A lot of them don't like talking Hebrew in the street, but they do. But in the house, they prefer to talk Yiddish. They think Hebrew is a holy language and should only be used for the Bible. That's not correct. It could be used like they did in everyday communication in Jerusalem. That could be the case. Okay, so um, I was just thinking when Yeshua was in Israel, he did come to Israel, although we say he came to earth, he came to Israel. Um, he had some women that traveled around with him, and they took care of him. And let me kind of explain what they did. As I understand it, they would take care of cleaning clothes. He couldn't wear the same clothing outfit every day for 3 years. Can imagine. Okay, so he must have had multiple that he could save. And the way they did the wash then is they didn't go to a laundromat and put quarters in it. Although today you probably put $5 in it. They went to an area where people wash clothes, where there was water and stones to bang it out on, and so they would, uh, they had different things. Like people used to have these boards with aluminum with slots in it, and they'd rub the clothes up and down on that. It would create the friction and get the dirt to fall off of the clothes, and plenty of water, and that's how they cleaned the clothes. Um, and then they would take the clothes and hang them out someplace or lay them on a rock or someplace where they would dry. And then they would probably fold them back, and that was how they cleaned the clothing back then. That went on for many, 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 many centuries. They didn't have machines. The washing machines were when electricity came. They probably had them around the 1900s, the early 1900s. They had them. They had cars in the late 1800s, very late. So they probably had washing machines. Uh, what the washing machines did, they still do, is you uh, got water in it and some kind of a detergent, and it would just rotate and slosh the water against the clothing. And then probably the later versions were talking about, with the spin dry, what they used to have was rollers. Okay, so when you finished the washing machine, you had two rollers. They probably originally was steel, but later on they were kind of a rubber thing, and it had a little opening, and you would crank the rollers and it would feed the clothing through. You started it and you crank it, it would feed the clothing through, and it would squeeze all the water out of the clothes. Maybe you had to do it twice or something, right? And then you would hang it up. And they were using those back probably even in the 40s, I think they were still using that stuff. I think after World War II, they were getting into spin dry. And did they have dryers? I think that came later. I think the big thing was initially to have just a washing machine. When I grew up in the Bronx, my parents had only a washing machine, and they had a clothesline that in the warmer weather, which was about 5, 6 months a year, they used the clothesline to dry the clothes. And then in the winter, they had what we called a hamper. It was this aluminum thing that you stood up, and it had little pieces of aluminum with a rubber over it. And you put your clothes on there, and they dried on there inside the house. So they took days to dry. And the house had a constant humidity in it from that. I don't know if that was good or bad, but I didn't like it. And um, so even in my mother, realizing now they did have clothes dryers, but there wasn't enough room in the kitchen. So she settled for the washing machine and, you know, that type of thing. So that's what went on. So they were um, taking care of him. They would buy the food. They had offerings that he took, and they would take the food. They would take money from the offerings and make food, buy food, prep the food. And I believe that him or them would find places for Yeshua to sleep. He didn't have a house, but I don't think, knowing the climate in Jerusalem, which is probably different back then, but with the rainy season and the cold and everything like that, I don't think he was just sleeping out in the parks. Okay. I think in the wet, in the warm months, maybe they did sleep outside. But that would be the houses would be rather hot inside too, you know. So maybe they did do that. I don't know. I know that the people in the kibbutzes would sometimes sleep outside in the hot weather. See, 10, 11 o'clock at night, it would cool off outside, but your house wouldn't cool down to maybe 2 in the morning, you know? And they had fans, I guess that helped. You can, surprisingly, you can live with fans unless it's insane heat. Even if it's 103 outside and, something like that, you can do it. You just sit in front of the fan. I mean, you move the fan 2 feet away from you and you turn it up. And the other trick is because I did this, I lived in Tiberias for years with no fan, with no air conditioning, and you use two fans when you have to. You blow one fan one way, one fan the other way, so you get cool on both sides. And if it gets bad, you turn your shower on without any hot water, and it's going to be cool water. And you stand in the shower as long as you can take it. You really got to go in there for about a dead minimum of 3 minutes. You need about 5 minutes in there. And you drop your core temperature down, and it stays there for several hours. You don't just get out and in 15 minutes you heat it up. I guess if you get out and you started, jogging or something, you'd get hot in a few minutes. But if you just get out and you stay in front of the fan, um, you're going to be good, you know, for 3, 4 hours. And usually that breaks the heat of the day. But if you have to, you go in a second time. I think maybe very rarely did I go in a second time, but I remember doing it a first time. That I could remember. And it works. It works. The other thing we had was a swamp cooler, although in Tiberias it's the wrong place to have one because the humidity's high. So it doesn't cool your house off. In Jerusalem, humidity is low because you're up high, 2,500 feet. So you put on a swamp cooler, and these houses are made out of concrete and stone and stuff like that. So they're very cold. The floors tile. They don't have carpets, and you put the swamp cooler on in the morning. I used to put it on at about when the sun would come up about 11 or so. Yeah, you had to turn it on. I'd turn it on for about 45 minutes, and it would keep the house pretty darn cool, really cool, till about in the summer, about 4 or 5 o'clock at night. The heat built up, put it on again for 45 minutes, and it would stay warm till the morning. Stay cool till the morning. I mean, it really stayed cool, cool, cool. But in Tiberias, it wouldn't work because humidity is high. So what you had to do was sit very close to the swamp cooler, and it would blow like little bits of water at you, and it would work. You'd get water on you, but then the fan effect would evaporate the water off you and cool you. So you wouldn't cool the house off with that. So you kept your windows open, because all you would do if you kept your windows closed is build up a massive amount of humidity in your house and make yourself more uncomfortable. But with a lot of windows open, the humidity was moot. And you stay like that. So you can live without it. Now, if you don't have electricity, that's a horse of another color. Then you want to go outside, because it'll cool off at night a lot sooner than your house is going to cool off. So maybe in the warmer months they did sleep outside. Maybe they had a tent. Uh, Maybe they had some tents in the winter, but I think they. My guess is he probably was going inside houses during the winter months. I don't know how he could have been sleeping out in the street in the rain, just get sopping wet. I don't know what happened. I don't know. Maybe there was caves they found. They went in. I don't know what they did, but they would have most likely found shelter. He didn't have a house to lay his head, so I think he probably was staying with other people. Okay, because we see him in houses at different times. So do we see him? Okay, night came and he just walked out of the house and said, "Okay, I'm gonna go sleep in the street. I'll see you later." I don't think so. I think he probably slept in the house. But that's my guess. Anyway, he did have women that would go around and take care of him, so he didn't have to worry about washing the clothes and buying the food and prepping the food. He would worry and be concerned. Well, worry. He would be concerned with trying to help the people and teach and stuff like that. That's what he was doing. Now, when he was a kid, he would go to the rabbis there and he would talk about the scriptures with them, and they would be pretty amazed about him uh, because uh, he knew a lot about the scriptures. And then one time his parents were there for the holiday in Jerusalem, and they left, and he didn't leave with them. And they had to go looking for him. And then he said, "Well, I had to be about my father's business." But then he didn't do that anymore. He didn't tell them. He just did it. Uh, okay, one of our subscribers sent me a report about the meat prices. Now, somebody said they were getting organic, low-fat meat for about roughly $6 a pound, and that didn't sit well with me. I didn't think it was right. I don't know why that person said that. Could it have been true? I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't know so. But it sounded very funny to me, like somebody was just playing with us, right? So what did we get here? We got this organic grass-fed beef. This I think is in the southeastern part of the United States, not Florida or Georgia, a little bit north of there. Um, Organic grass-fed beef is $10 a pound. So why would it be on the East Coast there $10 and someplace else 6? Makes no sense. And that's the 80/20 with the lower fat content. Um, then bison, which is buffalo, is $12 a pound. Buffalo's not bad. It's a little on the tough side. It's pretty good. The rabbis call it kosher, whatever that's worth. Lamb is lower at $8 a pound. And Walmart have gone from pricing fruit in the in increments. Instead of pricing fruit as a pound, they're pricing fruit as a piece of fruit, such as 50 cents for a peach, $1 for a cucumber. Um, I didn't know that was going on. This person told me, forget the price of steak unless you find it on sale or can afford to buy a whole strip loin, etc. From the looks of this, steak is probably around $18 a pound or something, I'm guessing. From looking at it. Maybe you could get cheap cuts for 12 or something. I don't know. So people just aren't eating steak. Let me tell you something. If you're active and stuff like that, and you want enough protein from meat or protein in general, what you could do is have yourself 2 or 3 eggs in the morning, and you're almost there. Okay. Melt some cheese in with your eggs and make a cheese omelet. Put You're probably there. Okay. Put some beef bacon in with your cheese and your eggs, and you'll hit it. Okay. Um, you don't need to eat that much meat. If you just get sandwich meat, which is not that expensive, and you get yourself, 2 or 3 slices in a sandwich, or 4 if you want a day, but 2 is probably plenty. You have a few eggs, 2 slices of sandwich meat. You got your meat. If you had like 3 eggs, 2 slices of sandwich meat, your protein's there. You don't Americans and overeat protein. I mean, you can, it's not going to be bad for you, but you don't need that much. Okay. And they generally undereat fruit and vegetables. In its place, they eat carbs. Okay. So if you were to, because the prices are so high, and you say, well, I'll have a few eggs, I'll have a piece of cheese, or I'll make myself a quarter pound of hamburger, which is all you need. You don't need more than a quarter pound of hamburger. You could probably take an eighth pound hamburger and you're good for the day. You don't need to eat that much. When I was young, I used to eat 16-ounce steaks. Now I eat 6, 8 ounces is fine. You know, you don't need that much. I mean, it all varies on how much fat and how much uh, bone and all that, but uh, you don't need that much. Chicken wings. Now, see, this is where it's fortunate in Israel. Chicken wings are dirt cheap in Israel, dirt cheap. So if you have 5 or 6 chicken wings, you're getting what? Way the heck more protein meat than you need. If you had 3 chicken wings or 4, 2 even maybe, you'd have enough meat. That's it. You don't need that much. So people are, getting scared. Oh, I need this. I need, if you went ahead and you made some pasta with a red sauce and you took your ground beef and cooked it and threw it in there, that's it for the day. You don't need more than that, you know. But if it's $1 a cucumber, I'm shocked. Things are bad here with food. I tell you, we used to spend about 1,800 shekels a month on food. And that was laundry detergent, dishwasher soap, shampoo, paper towels, toilet paper included in that. And now it goes probably 5,000 shekels a month, or 6,000, and probably 6. And we get a lot of fruits and vegetables for free from the charity thing. And it's still spending that much. So it's incredibly bad. Nobody ever explained to me why it's bad, other than Satan doing it because he thinks it's fun. I don't think it's got any reason at all. Um, so you got to remember that there's a point where the people break, and they're breaking them on the food. So the person was telling me that uh, 80/20 ground beef, the low fat is often labeled as ground chuck. Typically costs between $8.85 and $9.39 a pound. And for $8.85 a pound, that's the family size pack. So that means you're probably buying, 4 or 5 pounds at one time, something like that. So they give you a better price because you're saving them on the packaging and all of that. So, but I'm telling you, you don't need, if you just cut yourself down to, I did this, okay? If you had 2 pieces of sandwich meat a day and 3 eggs, you're fine with your protein. That's it. I don't think eggs are that expensive yet, and sandwich meat's not that bad. Now there's different grades of sandwich meat. Some sandwich meat have additives into it, and some sandwich meat is all meat. So uh, you should get yourself a reasonably a good quality. Since here in Israel the sandwich meat is kosher, the rabbis are respecting it. It's not that bad. What about hot dogs? Well, that's another cheap way to get out of it. If you have one hot dog a day, you probably got it. Two. If you're not going to have excess, you had 2 hot dogs. You don't need that much meat. You know, the Chinese food, they put scraps of meat in it, beef and chicken, typically, right? Like in chow mein and chop suey and stuff. You don't get that much meat, but you get meat in there. Yeah, it's plenty of meat. You don't need that much meat. You know, fish will do it. But that's not so cheap. I don't know what they're selling tuna on, but if you had a can of tuna a day, I'm sure you'd be fine. You know, sardines will do it. You don't you don't need that much. You'd be fine. I think really if you had 2 pieces of sandwich meat a day, just that, and it was good sandwich meat, not garbage, it was really a lot of meat in there, you'd be okay. You don't need that much, you know. So some people are used to it, like we used to eat meat all the time when I grew up. And it was not that we didn't used to choke. I mean, I remember going in and buying T-bones, and ribeyes, they were 279 for a big one. It wasn't what they charge today. I don't know about you go to a restaurant. I mean, if you want to go to Fridays or one of those places, Applebee's, and order a T-bone steak, I imagine they're probably going to charge you $22 or something like that. Steaks probably costing them, because they buy them bulk, $10. Maybe they charge 25, and asking me for a steak and a baked potato and a little salad, which is going to be nothing with nothing in there. you know. So the restaurants are going to dry up. Uh, uh, the fast food guys are going to start suffering. People would prefer to eat out. A lot of time when I was young, people that was single would eat out a lot. I was one of them. A lot. I'd eat out a lot. And the justification was, people would say it's not cost effective to cook for one. And it was true. You know, it cost just about the same amount of money to cook for one as to cook for two, probably the same, you know. So a lot of people didn't do it, you know. I'd cook, but not that often, you know. And my idea of cooking is I'd get the bird's eye frozen vegetables in the package with the sauce in there, and that was my vegetables, you know. And then I would pan fry some kind of meat, rarely fish, and that was, I'd get a steak of some sort, throw it in the pan, and then till it was burned, and then have some frozen vegetables with it, and that was what I had. You know, that's what I would do. That was it. Uh, I wasn't a big hamburger eater. They had um, good hot dogs. I used to get, all different kinds of hot dogs. A hot dog place. They used to be fun to eat, and then I did a lot with the Chinese restaurants because they were very cheap. So I would bring takeout back to the house. I'd bring back a soup and sometimes a chow mein or a chop suey or chow fun noodles or something, and fried rice, and I'd eat it, or egg rolls, and I'd eat it in the house, or I'd sit there in the restaurant and eat it. Sometimes I'd want to go to the house and watch TV while I ate it or something like that, and that's what I used to do. Uh, okay. Um, I'm going to do Luke chapter 17. First, I want to look at the live stream, though. And I'm going to do Luke 17 in the two translations of the Hebrew New Testament. In other words, taking the Hebrew New Testament into English. But I want to see if I have any questions in the tribulation is coming. No, your end times doctrine's wrong. It's not tribulation. Read Zechariah 12. You're listening to people that are telling you Gog and Magog is coming next. When you read Ezekiel 38:39, it says Israel's living in peace and safety without bars and walls, and they come to take a spoil, gold, silver, cattle. 30% of Israel is living at the poverty line, probably now 40%. You know, we're not living without bars and walls. Somebody's feeding you crap. And then they'll tell you, oh, yeah, but that could change in a week. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Read Zechariah 12. That has to be fulfilled. And it's not fulfilled. Uh, 2 boiled eggs per day will get enough protein with 1 time per week eating high quality. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right about that. You don't need it every day. You don't need much. Montenegro. Oh, I don't know what you mean unless you're in Montenegro. That's nice. Don't always get a lot of people from Montenegro here. uh, Okay. I'm going to wait a second. I'm going to close this and get into the Bible work here. So I've got this set up a little differently. Where I've got Salkinson and next to it, I have Delitz so I can read it and try to give you the differences. So this is Luke 17, verse 1 with my uncooperative iPad. Okay. Salkinson's is the better. Okay. And he said to his disciples, it is impossible that offenses should not come, but woe to the man through whom they come. Offenses now, Delitzsch, in his Hebrew New Testament, uses a word that means stumbling blocks. That means people tell you that Gog and Magog is coming before Zechariah 12. That's a stumbling block. Okay. Verse 2. It would be better for him that a millstone be hanged about his neck and he be cast into the sea than that he should cause one of these little ones to stumble. It's about the same with Delitzsch. Verse 3. Take heed to your. He's saying if you put the millstone around him, you throw him in the water, he's going to drown very quickly and his torment will be over. But the Lord's going to give him a very, very hard time while he's above ground, and then when he's underground, worse. Because this person, and that's what these Satan bots do, they go after you, not that you ever did anything bad to them, because you never did. You don't even know who they are much of the time, or you barely know who they are. They just attack you because you're with Jehovah. That's why. Take heed to yourselves. They're afraid that if too many people with Jehovah and they get the truth, the true gospel, then their life's going to be miserable. And they're right. Take heed to yourselves. If your brother sins against you, rebuke him. And if he repents, forgive him. Now it says, if your brother sins against you. Delitzsch is basically the same thing. Okay, verse 4. And if he sins against you 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day turns again to you, saying, I repent, you shall forgive him. Repent means he stops doing it. It's not just, oh, I'm sorry. Repent means you stop doing it. Okay. Now we're in verse 5. And the apostles said to the Lord, increase our faith. Verse 6. And the Lord said, it's about the same in Delitzsch. Verse 6. And the Lord said, if you had faith as a grain of a mustard seed, you might say to this mulberry tree, be plucked up by the root and be planted in the sea, and it should obey you. Delitzsch calls it a sycamore tree, and it says, "Be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it should obey you." So Yeshua is saying, if you had enough faith, you would be able to command inanimate objects like this to do things. And that's why I keep asking for us to have more faith and wisdom in prayer, you know. Now we're up to verse 7. But which of you, having a servant plowing or feeding cattle, will say to him straightway, when he is come from the field, go and sit down to meal? Delitzsch reads like this, translated into English using secular tools to translate. But who among you, having a servant plowing or shepherding, shall say to him when he comes in from the field, come at once and recline at the table? Okay, that's normally not, the way it works. So, okay. And will not rather say to him, make ready wherewith, make ready wherewith I may sup, and gird yourself and serve me till I have eaten and drunken, and afterward you shall eat and drink. Will he not rather say to him, this is Delitzsch, prepare my supper and gird yourself and serve me until I have eaten and drunk, and afterward you may eat and drink? Okay, pretty much similar. Um, Now we're in verse 9. Does he thank that servant because he did the things that were commanded him? I think not. It's the same basically with Delitzsch. So likewise, you, when you shall have done all those things which are commanded you, say, we are unprofitable servants. We have done that which was our duty to do. And Delitzsch words it similar, says, we are worthless servants. We have only done what we were obliged to do. So he's telling you to be humble and not think you're so great. God's going to save you with mercy and grace more than your works deserve. No man's works are going to deserve the salvation, the redemption you're going to get. Okay? Both of those things. It's mercy and grace. Your works don't cut it. And it came to pass as he went to Jerusalem that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered into, they're both about the same here. And as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers who stood afar off. It's about the same with Dylan's. And they lifted up their voice and said, it says Jesus here, but it's Yeshua. It says, Yeshua, Master, have mercy on us. It's the same in the other one, Dylan. Where am I? Verse 10 or something. Now I'm in verse 14. And when he saw them, he said to them, go show yourselves. Wait. Okay. And when he saw them, he said to them, go show yourselves to the priest. And it came to pass that as they went, they were cleansed. They obeyed. So they got cleansed. They obeyed. Now, Delitz reads it like, it reads like this in Delitz, I should say. And he saw them and said to them, go show yourselves to the priests. And it came to pass as they went, they were cleansed. Cleansed. What does that mean? It probably means he cleansed them of their sins and the leprosy went away. But you're going to think he cleans the leprosy. But I. What? I said Dom Begam. What do you think that? This and that. It was both. You think it was the two?
The spiritual picture in the Levitical law of leprosy is a condition of sin.
Right.
The diseases of Egypt would come on them if they obeyed. So he sent them with a offering to the temple as a witness. He could cleanse them physically, but he also cleansed them spiritually.
Don't you think if he cleansed them spiritually, the leprosy would have just gone away because it had?
Until they presented the offering, because it had to be a witness to the temple.
But they got cleansed on the way before they were headed towards doing the offering.
By an act of faith.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
They could have chosen not to do it.
So they were going to follow through and do it. So he said, okay, I'll give you the cleansing now.
Their faith made them whole. Yeah. Why did he say to the daughter, go on your way, your faith has made you whole?
Yeah. All right. That's interesting. So my wife is saying both. Okay. And the reason he sent them to the priests is there was a provision for this cleansing in the Moses law. And of course, he knew the priests were going to bust the gut over this because they had never seen this before and they didn't do it. And that is radical, but okay. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back and with a loud voice glorified God. And we're pretty much on the same thing with Delich. And fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks, and he was a Samaritan. You see, the Jews didn't like Yeshua, but some of the Samaritans went for him, went for Yeshua. And the Delich he fell on his face at his feet, giving thanks to him, and he was a Samaritan. Basically the same. And Yeshua, but we're going to see some deviations later in this chapter, I think, between the two of them. Just wait. And Yeshua answering said, were there not 10 cleansed, but where are the 9? Yeah, that's kind of a sarcastic way of saying what the others don't want to say they got healed. There are not found that returned to give glory to God, save this stranger. And Delitzsch doesn't use the word stranger, he uses foreigner. I think foreigner would be more accurate. Verse 19. And he said to him, arise, go your way, your faith has made you whole. And the other one's a little different. It says, and he said to him, rise, go your way, your faith has saved you. I would prefer saying made you whole over saved. But the saved is here, it's got a deeper meaning. Faith that Yeshua could cleanse him, Yeshua cleansed him of his sins and healed him of the leprosy. So he did get saved in a way because he didn't have his sins. See, they're both right. Okay, verse 20. And when he was demanded of the Pharisees when the kingdom of God should come, he answered them and said, the kingdom of God comes not with observation. Yeah, it says visibility is the other guy, Dillett says. Neither shall they say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. The kingdom of God is in your midst. You see, Delitzsch is not calling this right. Here's a conflict between the two, and Delitzsch appears to be playing church and twisting. And why should I go like this or like this? I don't know. Twisting. Okay. Neither will they say, behold here or behold there. For behold, the kingdom of God is in your midst. No, it's within you. It's not the same thing. But you see, he's very careful. In your midst, the midst is your middle. Where your belly button is the middle. So it's in you. He's saying that. But when you talk to somebody and you say in your midst, it means like it's in the room or it's in the neighborhood or in the city or something. It doesn't mean it's inside you. But if you get called out on the carpet, you can worm out of it that way. You see? You see, the Holy Spirit. And that's why the Holy Spirit's within us. And that's why we have the keys to the kingdom. Ta da! Because the kingdom is within us. That was good. Come on. It was good. It was good. Okay. Verse 22. And he said to the disciples, the days will come when you shall desire to see one of the days of the Son of Man, and you shall not see it. What would you give to hang out with Yeshua for one day? Would you ever be the same? No. No. He says, days are coming when you long to see the days of the Son of Man, and you will not see it. Okay. 23. And they shall say to you, See here or see there, go not after them, nor follow them. Delit says, do not run after them. They're about the same here. 24. For as the lightning that lightens out of the one part under heaven shines to the other part under heaven, so shall also the Son of Man be in his day. For now, Delich is, for as the lightning flashes and lights up from one end of the sky to the other end of the sky, so will the Son of Man be in his day. It says a day, right? How long is the millennium? Is it a day when he's in New Jerusalem? Gee, no, it's like thousands and thousands of days. This is the day. The Zechariah 12, the day, that day, the day of vengeance, the day he appears in the clouds like lightning from the east to the west. So let's read this again. For as the lightning that lightens out of the one part under heaven and shines to the other part under heaven, so shall also the Son of Man be in his day. That's the day. It's going to be that bright, but it's going to be like all over the place. It's going to be a wild day. I look forward to it greatly. Verse 25, but first must he suffer many things and be rejected of this generation. This generation, the generation back when he was in Israel. Okay. It's the same basically with Delich. I think it's identical. 26. And he suffered back then. He's not suffering sitting at the right hand of God the Father. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days plural. See, in his day, now we're in days plural, the days of the Son of Man. And it's plural in Delich too. It would be Yomim. Yom is day, Yomim is days. They did eat. They drank, they married wives, and they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them. It's about the same in Delich. Not much, same basically. 28. Likewise, also, as it was in the days of Lot. See, now it's talking the days of Lot. See, what he's talking about is the time of Lot. Okay? The days of Noah, the time of Noah, the days, it means that. It means the time, the season when it was going on, right? Likewise, also, as it was in the days of Lot. They did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. The Delich is basically like that. Delich reads, but on the day Lot went out from Sodom, it rained fire and sulfur Yeah, I mean, it smells from sulfur over there, from still to this day, from heaven and destroyed them all. It's very close. But when you smell it over there, even to this day, it's sulfur, like stick matches. You get those boxes of stick matches. They're like about like this, and you slide it, and the match is on wood, and you smell the box. It smells like sulfur. That's what you get over there in Sodom. Okay, verse 30. Or wait. Oh no, I'm on verse 30. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. You see, it says the same thing with David. So will it be on the day when the Son of Man is revealed. That's Matthew 24:30, Revelation 1:7, John 6:40, the appearing of him in the clouds. That's the revealing. They see Yeshua is revealed. It's not the coming down to earth where he's going to throw the beast and false prophet in the lake of fire alive. They're not even running around yet at this time. And he's not bringing New Jerusalem. Okay, that's what this is saying. And they've covered it up. So the people that show up Sunday from 9 in the morning to 11 in those buildings have no idea what's really going to happen. What's going to happen to them when he appears like lightning from the east to the west? Oh, I don't know. I know what's going to happen to you guys. It's going to be all good. I don't know about them. 31. In that day, he who shall, those of you that understand this and believe it, in that day, he who shall be upon the house top and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. And though it doesn't say housetop, he says roof. I like roof better personally, but they both work. Um, he doesn't say return back, he says turn back. So I think it means the people in the field don't go back into your house. Remember Lot's wife. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life shall preserve it, because you live forever in heaven. Okay, it's about the same in Delich. Verse 34. I tell you, in that night there shall be two men in one bed. The one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. Now, is this talking about the millennium in New Jerusalem and there's two guys sleeping in the bed? One is taken and one is left. Well, the one that's left would be the saved. So we got sinner to make this in New Jerusalem. You got to put sinners in New Jerusalem, which is impossible. It doesn't work. This is your Matthew 13, your tares and your wheat. This is what happens when he appears. And the tares are gathered in bundles to be burned in the fire in Matthew 13. This is for the coming day that's at the doors. These are the tares that look like the wheat. They impersonate being the wheat, but they're vipers, they're serpents, they're wolves in sheep's clothing. They're evil. I tell you, in that night there shall be two men in one bed. The one shall be taken and the other left. You see, here he's explaining this is not the rapture, of course, because the good ones are left, the bad ones are taken out. The Schofield Darby rapture has the good ones taken out first. Your Bible doesn't do it that way. Two women shall be grinding together. Well, if you're in New Jerusalem, you'd be resting in your millennium. you wouldn't be out there grinding, and you wouldn't have a sinner with you grinding, because you'd be in New Jerusalem and the sinner wouldn't be there. The one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding together, one shall be taken and the other left. The verse 36 is supposedly left out of the very early manuscripts, okay, which is basically um, I could read verse 36 out of King James, so to show you what's omitted from these older words. So we got to find Luke. Luke, where are you? Luke 17, verse 36. And Luke 35, 36 reads, two men shall be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left. Okay, so that's not revolutionary, or it just isn't in there in the older manuscripts. So you needed to know that it's just not in there. Then we go to verse 37. Curious that Salkinson and Delich both left verse 36 out. Okay, now we're in verse 37. And they answered and said to him, where, Lord? And he said to them, wherever the body is, thither will the eagles be gathered. It's really the vultures. And Delich gets it right. Delich says, and they answered and said to him, where, Lord? And he said to them, wherever the carcass is, there the vulture will be gathered. Now, you see, this is the advantage of doing both of these guys. You're going to get it right between the two of them. You're going to get it. Okay. Um, Salkinson's leans heavily on a poetic prose, archaic prose style that mirrors um, the old, Old Testament. And Delich focuses tightly on technical rabbinical precision, carefully substituting specific cultural vocabularies such as translating apostles into the distinct Hebrew concept of emissaries or shaleachim. See, when the guy comes to the house with the groceries, he's a shaleach. He's no apostle. He's a shaleach. So they're using that word. The rabbis were using that word for apostles. You see what schmucks they were? They're using the word for the delivery guy for, for an apostle. Now that is taking grievous translation uh, advantage, Uh, yeah, the shaliach brings your grocery or your delivery from Amazon. The guy that comes with your Amazon order is a shaliach. When they call on the phone, you go, Mise, who's this? He goes, shaliach. That's what they say. and we're supposed to believe that that's the same thing as an apostle. Gee, I have a lot of trouble with that. I'll bet you do too. You know, um, no, that's not good stuff. So there you have it. Um, let's see if we got any questions or anything up here. Let's see. Do you want me to do laughing, chatting yoga exercises? No, I don't think so. The culmination of yoga is your death. Yoga stinks. It's the occult yoga. Someone what is the connection between Ezekiel's vision and for Kabbalistic world, since out of the clouds four beings appeared as each world is ruled by archangel. What do the vote? Okay, I don't pay any attention to the Kabbalah. I never read it. I don't intend to ever read it. It's a book on witchcraft, so I have no idea what is going on there, nor do I care. Okay. So, I can't make an answer to that because it's nonsense. I mean, the Kabbalah, may as well be the Tibetan Book of the Dead. What do the vulture birds represent? Well, it's not that they represent anything other than what they are. It's saying that's where the dead are. That's where their bodies are. See, when the angels come and bind them up into bundles, they don't remove their bodies. Okay. They would wind up in the dry place where the rich guy went with the beggar that was eating the food outside his gates, the crumbs, and the dogs licked his wounds. He went to Abraham's bosom, and this rich guy went to the bad place with the heat and the flame, and he asked Abraham to send the beggar over there to put his finger in water and put it on his tongue because it was so hot over there. They go there, but their bodies, the angels don't take their bodies, their spirits go. They get killed, and their spirit leaves their body, and their spirits go down there. Their bodies are apparently left. But when you get into it deeper, they get burned up. When you read Malachi 4, their bodies actually get burned up. God does it, or the two witnesses do it. Probably God does it because they would be mingled in with the people, and the two witnesses might not be able to effectively do that. So God would do it, and their ashes under your feet. Ashes don't contaminate the land. If it was dead bodies, it would contaminate the land, and then they would have to be buried, which when you read Gog and Magog as a contrast there, when that's over, they bury the bodies because there's so many bodies laying around, they're not all burned up. But here in Zechariah 12, which of course precedes Gog and Magog by 70 years, the 270s of Daniel 9:24 are not 70 weeks. Every single Hebrew manuscript says 70. So the first 70 was completed as the second 70. So that's what it is. Okay, so the vultures are showing you that they're they're laying there and they're getting eaten. But why would there be vultures eating them now when they get burned up? I guess some of them don't get burned up. They don't get burned up. I don't know. I don't know. Um, I could go back and look at that. Let's take a look. And they answered and said to him, "Where, Lord?" Okay, so let's see. He's talking about the two together being taken out. Yeah, I believe that's the tares and the wheat, unless I'm wrong about that. Um, uh, maybe I'm wrong, and this is Gog and Magog. That would be the better answer because then the vultures eating it would make more sense because this doesn't go on in Zechariah 12 nor Malachi 3 or 4. But then on the other hand, the tares look like the wheat and they go up together until the harvest. So maybe he means the harvest to be, I don't know, I think. See, in Gog and Magog, the dead bodies are called as an offering for the animals, a blood sacrifice. He's making a covenant with them, I guess. The Lord is. So they eat the blood and they eat the dead bodies. So it makes more sense to fit it with that, where they have people going around for quite a long time afterward collecting the bones and stuff of the dead body. That contaminates the land. But there's not that many of us left when Zechariah 12 is finished. 2/3 get cut off. And you read that in Malachi 4, but they get burnt up and they're ashes, and ashes don't contaminate the land. It's just not, it's, the fire purifies it. It doesn't, it's not anything you have to worry about. The dead bodies you have to worry about. So maybe this really is Gog and Magog, not so much with the vultures taking place here in the Zechariah 12, because it doesn't fit too good. Because we see it in Malachi 4, and then we see Zechariah chapter 13, verses 8 and 9, the 2/3 get cut off. But let's go there. See, you always got to challenge yourself and make sure if you can punch a hole in your doctrine, you got to change it. And somebody that never changes their doctrine is somebody that never grows or is perfect. Okay. Yeshua was the perfect one. That was it. There's nobody else. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith Jehovah, two parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein, and I will bring the third part through the fire and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. Now, try them means test them to make sure the gold is pure. He tests it. So we get tested too, don't we? And we'll try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them and will say, it is my people. And they shall say, the Lord is my God. So we do know that the tares do get cut off and bound in bundles. So it could be the days of Gog and Magog that happens. But it also lends itself to much better to Zechariah 12 because it says they'll be burned, to be burned. Well, they get burned. They get burned up in uh, Zechariah, in Malachi 4. They get burned up. So it lends itself to that. So this could be something different, but it wouldn't be the millennium. It would be before the millennium, which could still be the Ezekiel 38, 39. So it might be that. Could reference that, perhaps. Okay. We'll know soon enough. But I think when you're talking about leaving them for the vultures, that would be Ezekiel 38, 39, because I don't see that in Zechariah 12 nor Malachi 4. So I would have to switch that over to Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38, 39. Well, we do see graphically the dead bodies there. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that. And the trying of the gold was a good one because we get tried. Tested. Tried means tested. You try the gold. You want to make sure it's pure. So he wants to make sure you're pure, you're good. You get tested. And if not, you get chastened until you get it right. Okay, we'll get a prayer up. And remember that we're offering driven here. Okay, I have to keep reminding people, but this is driven by offerings. And if you like this and you want to see it spread to other people and help other people and bear good fruit, there you go. You know what to do. Uh, you could read the description box, or you could see it right up there in the chat. All right. My Heavenly Father Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers and their households, that we would have your peace, safety, protection, joy, calm, and rest. We would have strength, stamina, and endurance. We would have your healing and recuperative power flowing through us. And for ourselves and our animals and pets, we'd be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I pray for all of us that are believers to have more of the gift of faith and wisdom. And discernment. And I pray for those of us that are looking to get another place to live or need a place to live, that we find it easily, quickly, and it would be a good deal. And I pray for those of us that need clients or customers for our business, we get those too. And I pray I don't know. And I pray for us to all have mercy and grace and understand that our redemption and salvation is when the Lord turns towards us with mercy and grace. And I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Now I'm going to do some spiritual warfare. And you can agree with this, even if it's in video when you're watching it. Just agree with this. And B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I bind all the unclean spirits from going into or communicating with or helping or guiding or leading or directing Trump, anyone in the White House, anyone in his cabinet, anyone that works for the Pentagon or the military or the intelligence agencies. You have no part, no place having anything to do with these people. You cannot be in them or their families and how people live in the same house as them for the next year continuously, and for the next year continuously. No unclean spirit will go in these people nor communicate with them or appear to them or help them, guide them, lead them, direct them, deceive them, lie to them, or anything for the next 1 year continuously shall apply to Trump and these things in America, plus shall apply to Israel as well, the government of Israel, all the elected and appointed officials, and everyone who works for the government of Israel, and the same for Iran, all their appointed, elected, and dictators, and everyone who works for the government of Iran. And these commands are set in place irrevocably for 1 year continuously. No unclean spirit shall go into anyone who works for the government of Israel or Iran, or anyone who lives in their households for the next year continuously beginning now, nor shall you communicate with them, guide them, lead them, direct them, help them, assist them, deceive them, or lie to them for the next year continuously. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and I submit this to you, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, and I pray you make it so. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this if you're a believer. You should. And more spiritual warfare. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I loose from all the true believers, me and my wife, all the true believers, their families and their households, from everybody. I loose any unclean spirits out of these entities, out of these people immediately, and they shall never return unto them again. And if there's any witchcraft or sorcery directing us or any of these people, it's made null and void, of no value, no effect forever. And if any of the unclean spirits are throwing, or demons, or people serving the demons, throwing darts at any of these people, the darts shall miss and not find their mark. And these commands are set in place now, and for 1 year continuously, beginning now, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with that. And the unclean spirits, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, shall not go into any of these people for 1 year continuously, beginning now, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with that. And I'll keep updating everybody, mostly on Telegram. If something blows up, I'll do Telegram and a video or a live stream or whatever on YouTube. But we'll keep updating it and see what happens. And we'll see what Trump does. Trump's in a real fix right now, and that's the snare. Jeremiah 50, verse 24. America, not so much Trump, but the country, daughter of Babylon, America's in a snare. So I'm out. I hope you got something out of this. And thanks.